Britain in the 1970s was a nation under pressure. Fuel crises, industrial disputes, and economic uncertainty forced ordinary families to think very carefully about the cars they bought. In that difficult climate, small cars were not a compromise, they were a lifeline. British manufacturers rose to that challenge with some of the most clever, characterful, and quietly revolutionary small cars ever built on these islands. Some were bold, some were brilliant, and one would change Britain forever. Stay with us for all 10 entries, because the story of this decade belongs entirely to the small cars. Number 10. Hillman Avenger. Hillman Avenger was launched in 1970 and built at the Rootes Group's Linwood plant in Scotland. At first glance it looked like a perfectly conventional small family saloon, and that was entirely the point. British families wanted reliability and sensible space, and the Avenger delivered both without drama. Its 1.2 and 1.3-litre overhead valve engines were modest but durable, powering a rear-wheel drive platform that felt familiar and easy to maintain. But there was one aspect most buyers never discussed in showrooms. The Avenger quietly became a celebrated rally car, competing seriously across Europe and South America with considerable success. That sporting underneath contrasted brilliantly with its suburban exterior. Production continued until 1981, with the car also sold as the Chrysler Avenger following Chrysler's takeover of Rootes. Would you have suspected that your neighbor's plain family saloon was quietly a rally-bred machine? Now coming up next is a car that took a far more modern approach to the small car problem entirely. Number 9. Vauxhall Chevette. Vauxhall Chevette arrived in 1975 as Britain's answer to a new generation of practical European rivals. Built at Ellesmere Port in Cheshire, the Chevette was offered in saloon, estate, and hatchback forms, giving British buyers real versatility at an affordable price. Its 1.2 and 1.3-litre overhead camshaft engines were smooth and economical, qualities that mattered enormously during an era still shaken by the 1973 oil crisis. What many buyers never realized was that underneath the Chevette's ordinary appearance sat a global platform shared across GM's worldwide operations, refined specifically for British conditions. And then came the HS. The Chevette HS homologation special, fitted with a twin-cam 16-valve engine producing around 135 brake horsepower, became a genuine group for rally weapon. Few small British saloons have ever led such a double life. Do you think everyday buyers ever connected their family runabout to those Forest stage heroics? Further up this list, the surprises grow considerably larger. Number 8. Triumph Dolomite Sprint. Triumph Dolomite Sprint was introduced in 1973 and genuinely ahead of its time by several years. Built at Canley in Coventry, the Sprint was based on Triumph's compact Dolomite saloon but concealed something remarkable beneath its bonnet. Its 1998cc engine featured a 16-valve cylinder head at a time when such technology belonged to racing machinery rather than production saloons. Producing 127 brake horsepower, the Sprint could reach 60 miles per hour in around 9 seconds, genuinely quick for a small British saloon of that era. The engineering story behind that cylinder head is particularly fascinating. British Leyland's Harry Munday designed it with a single camshaft driving 8 inlet and 8 exhaust valves, an elegant solution to producing performance without excessive complexity. Sadly, industrial unrest at British Leyland often interrupted production, and the Sprint never reached its full commercial potential. Would this sophisticated little saloon have thrived under different circumstances? One car ahead on this list would prove far more commercially resilient. Number 7. Leyland Mini Clubman. Leyland Mini Clubman was introduced in 1969 but spending its entire commercial life through the 1970s as one of Britain's most recognizable small cars. Where the original Mini wore its radical engineering beneath deliberately simple bodywork, the Clubman attempted a modest modernization with a squared-off nose designed by Roy Haynes. Built at Longbridge in Birmingham, it offered slightly improved interior space and a more conventional dashboard layout that appealed to buyers who found the original's driving position eccentric. The 998cc and 1098cc A-series engines continued the Mini's tradition of front-wheel drive and transverse engine packaging. Still genuinely innovative for a mainstream British family car in 1970. The Clubman estate version became particularly popular with families needing practical load space on a modest budget. Few people today remember that the Clubman outsold many rivals consistently through the decade. Yet the original Mini's influence loomed larger still, and that story is still ahead of you on this list. Number 6. Ford Fiesta. Ford Fiesta, which arrived in Britain in 1977 and immediately rewrote the rules of the small car market. Built in Valencia, Spain, with engines produced at Bridgend in South Wales, the Fiesta introduced front-wheel drive to the Blue Oval's British small car range for the very first time. Its 957cc and 1117cc overhead valve engines were frugal and willing, wrapped inside a sharp, modern hatchback body that looked nothing like the conservative Fords British buyers had known before. Ford invested enormously in researching what European families actually needed from a small car, and the Fiesta's packaging reflected that research precisely. It became a phenomenon almost immediately, reaching sales figures that rivals could barely comprehend. What made it truly significant was how it forced every other British manufacturer to reconsider their small car strategies overnight. Could any other new arrival of 1977 have caused quite such disruption? The answer, looking further up this list, becomes very clear indeed. Number 5. Volkswagen Polo. Number 5 is the Volkswagen Polo, but built in Britain? Not quite, yet its story belongs here because the Chrysler Sunbeam of 1977 was Britain's direct response to exactly that threat. Built at the Lingwood plant in Scotland, the Sunbeam used a rear-wheel drive platform adapted from the Avenger but wore modern three-door hatchback bodywork that felt genuinely contemporary. Its 928cc and 1295cc engines gave decent economy, and the car filled a gap in the Chrysler UK range that had been painfully obvious for years. But wait until you hear what happened next. The Sunbeam Lotus, developed with Colin Chapman's team at Lotus and fitted with a 150 brake horsepower 2172cc twin-cam engine, became a World Rally Championship winner in 1979 and 1980. A World Rally Championship winning car, built in Scotland, from a manufacturer many had already written off. Few small British cars carried such an extraordinary contrast between ordinary showroom reality and motorsport legend. The cars ahead carried even greater cultural weight. Number 4. Austin Allegro. Number 4 is the Austin Allegro, and yes, it absolutely belongs on this list. Launched in 1973 as the intended successor to the beloved 1100 and 1300 series, the Allegro arrived carrying enormous expectations and immediately attracted criticism that has followed it ever since. Its controversial styling, penned under pressure at British Leyland, divided opinion sharply. The Quartic steering wheel became a period curiosity that few buyers forgave. Yet beneath the awkward exterior sat genuine engineering substance. The 1100cc, 1300cc, and 1500cc A-Series and E-Series engines were reliable performers, and the Hydrogas suspension system offered a genuinely sophisticated ride that many rivals could not match. Nearly 650,000 Allegros were sold across its production run, numbers that tell a rather different story from the reputation. Miss this chapter and you miss something important about how British Leyland struggled to translate engineering talent into commercial confidence. Coming next, a car that succeeded where the Allegro fell short. Number 3. Austin Morris 1100 and 1300. The Austin Morris 1100 and 1300, but specifically their 1970s continuation as the most consistently bought small car in Britain for much of the decade's opening years. Originally launched in 1962, the ADO 16 family remained Britain's best-selling car well into the early 1970s, a remarkable achievement for a design already a decade old. The reason was simple: nothing else offered front-wheel drive, hydroelastic suspension, and genuine interior space in such an accessible package. Alec Isagonas had designed a car so fundamentally right that buyers kept returning despite newer alternatives arriving from every direction. Its 1098cc and 1275cc A-Series engines were economical, smooth, and easy to service, important qualities for a decade defined by fuel anxiety. The 1100 and 1300 represented the last great chapter of a genuinely revolutionary design. Would any replacement manage to carry that legacy forward? British Leyland certainly tried, and that attempt sits just ahead of you now, at number 2. Number 2. Austin Maxi. The Austin Maxi, which deserves far greater recognition than history has generally allowed it. Launched in 1969 and produced throughout the 1970s at Longbridge, the Maxi was genuinely pioneering. It was Britain's first true hatchback with a full 5-door layout, predating most European rivals in offering a large tailgate, fold-flat rear seats, and genuine load-carrying versatility in a small car body. Its 1485cc and 1748cc E-Series engines were modern overhead camshaft units, and the front-wheel drive packaging maximized interior space impressively. Yet a notoriously difficult gear change and inconsistent early build quality undermined what should have been a triumph. Many enthusiasts today completely overlook that the Maxi introduced hatchback versatility to British buyers years before it became the industry standard. That is a genuinely important piece of automotive history being quietly forgotten. But the car that defined 1970s small car Britain more than any other is finally here. And its story is one you will not forget. Number 1. The Mini. Original Mini, still in production throughout the entire 1970s and still changing lives with every year that passed. First launched in 1959 by Alec Isigonis at British Motor Corporation, the Mini spent the 1970s as Britain's automotive conscience. While rivals grew larger and more comfortable, the Mini remained defiantly small, brilliantly efficient, and culturally irreplaceable. Its transverse 848cc and 998cc A-Series engines, driving the front wheels through a gearbox sharing the same oil as the engine, remained as revolutionary in 1975 as they had been in 1959. The Mini democratized motoring for a generation that could not afford anything larger. It appeared on every British high street, in every television program, in every layer of society from student bedsit to royal garage. It inspired every front-wheel drive small car that followed it globally. It did not merely change British motoring, it changed Britain itself. And that is why nothing else comes close. The 1970s was not an easy decade for Britain, but these 10 small cars remind us of something remarkable. In workshops from Longbridge to Linwood, engineers and designers kept finding ways to do more with less, more space, more efficiency, more character, all packed into bodies small enough to park anywhere on Britain's narrow streets. These cars carried families through difficult years and built memories that have lasted a lifetime. Which one would you have chosen from a 1970s British showroom? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through small British motoring history, subscribing to Britain Rewind helps us keep these stories alive.